Welcome back to the Faculty Factory podcast. I'm Kim Skorupski, and today we're talking with Dr. Dave Usum.
Well, I think that time management is critically important, and it goes along with my interest in Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You know, the third habit after being proactive and beginning with the end in mind is put first things first. And I think that that's a very important thing that people need to learn how to do in order to be efficient and get things accomplished in their life. They have to have their mission, and then they have to prioritize. So putting first things first, obviously, is prioritization. From my own standpoint, I'm very focused. In fact, I have a one of my mottos is that I do very few things very well. So it's kind of a little bit of a play on words. You know, most people think that's insulting, that, you know, you do very few things very well. but what I like to think about is that I do very few things, but I do them very well because I devote a lot of time to them. So in my own life, working with faculty is critically important to me, and creating and making sure I have time for that. Obviously, my career in neuroradiology, and here's something that you probably don't know about me, Kim. I'm a very knowledgeable individual about Impressionist art. So I took several courses in college. Whenever I go to a new city, I always look up the art museum that has Impressionist art. So I'm very focused. I know if you ask me about Renaissance art or Baroque art or abstract or, not so much. But I can tell you a lot about Impressionist art. So I think that, my ability to devote the time I have and focus it on those things that are most important to me is one of the talents of my time management philosophy.
Love it. So the exact opposite of a jack of all trades.
Yeah, I think that is not necessarily a successful philosophy for academia. I think that, if you're writing papers about, geriatric depression, and then you're writing a paper about, juvenile schizophrenia, and you're writing a paper about, MRI findings in manic depressive disorder in the field of psychiatry, you don't get known for. Yeah. So whereas if you devote and focus on a particular topic, then and use your time management skills to focus on that area that is your expertise, I think that gets you more notoriety in academia. And for better or for worse, at most institutions, the coin of the realm for promotion is, are you nationally recognized or internationally recognized, or are you a leader in the field? Now, it comes from, obviously, publications as well as grantsmanship, et cetera. But in the end, most of the time, the criteria is this a national leader that is recognized in order to get for the promotion? And you get recognized more readily if you have a focus that you are the go-to, you're the world's expert on this particular topic. Right. So time management is, saying no to a lot of the extraneous projects in order to devote it to that area where you're going to be the world's expert.
And that lines perfectly with what you told us about mission statements.
Yes. I mean, it relates to, the area that you are focused most in and you care passionately about. You then do, as Covey said, you devote time to it. Now, the way that devote time to it is, in his opinion, and I think is true, is to actually block out time on your calendar to do it. So this is sort of the time management matrix, where the mission critical things that you're doing may not be, time intensive as far as, as far as urgent, but it's very important. So that urgent, but not, that important, but not necessarily urgent realm is the so-called, time management matrix quadrant 2 time. And unfortunately, we end up filling our calendars a lot of times with urgent but not important things, or not urgent and not important things.
Right.
So I recommend to my junior faculty, when I do time management seminars, I ask people, take out your cell phone and let's make a recurring 2-hour block of time in your calendar each week that you will devote to your mission-centric projects. Mm-hmm. And do not alter it. Make it a recurring theme. If you can do it, a couple of times a week, all the better. But do not go a week without putting effort and energy into those projects that are mission-centric.
You'll be very pleased to know that we have Dr. Donna Vogel. Welcome back to the podcast. What are you going to impart on us today?
Well, thank you, Kim, and it's great to be here as always. We're going to talk today about using time productively. Probably most of you are familiar with the 4-quadrant matrix.
I was just going to say the Stephen Covey of the important, not important, urgent, not urgent. That's exactly what I was thinking about. That's when if you make everything high priority, that's why we all run around with our heads are on fire, and that's when we burn out, because we're running around like we're on fire because we've made everything red alert, and it's just not efficient.
Right. That's a killer. So I'll just go over that really quickly because most people have probably seen it, but you've got your 4 quadrants, and just visualize this because this is not video, so I can't draw it on a board. But in your upper left, that's quadrant 1. Those are urgent and important. Upper right, quadrant 2, urgent and not important. Quadrant 3, lower left, not urgent, but important. And quadrant 4, lower right, not urgent, not important. And how are these characterized? Your urgent and important quadrant 1 items are things you've got to do, both because you're under pressure to get them done and they're important. And that happens in 2 flavors. They can either be things that you left to the last minute, and that's going to take us to procrastination, or they're things that came up that you could not predict. And the way to handle those is to leave time on your schedule for them.
That's faculty who have to see patients. I mean, we're paid to see patients, and so it's important and it's urgent. You have no control over your patients, sometimes showing up, staying later, more complicated cases, having to close cases on Epic. That's the stuff, that you just have to do.
Right. And even if you're not a clinician, you can have unforeseen emergencies. Now, your quadrant 2 are things that are urgent and not important. Got to watch out for those, because those can get in the way of things that are important. You need to look at whether those could be rescheduled or delegated or just deflect them so that they don't get in the way of your quadrant 1 stuff. Quadrant 3 is an interesting one. Not urgent, but important. These are things that you need to allow time for to keep getting those things done kind of under the radar in the background, because they are going to help you when it comes time to do the important and urgent things. So don't let them become both important and urgent because you put them off.
It's like the stuff that we seem to neglect because we think, well, it's certainly important that I write papers and update my CV and start getting my ducks in a row for promotion, or do career development or faculty development activities and engage in mentoring. But it doesn't have to happen today. It's not terribly urgent, so we put it off. So that's opportunity for development and career advancement.
Yeah, I think updating your CV is a perfect example. It's got to be done. You don't want to be suddenly faced with having to do it when you're under a deadline, but that's exactly what's going to happen if you don't do it as you go along. Every time you have a paper published, every time you have an invited talk, whatever it is that's important enough to include, update it and just get it done so that it's ready to go when you need it. Mm-hmm. And then the final quadrant, quadrant 4, is your time wasters. Not urgent, not important. They're distractions, and they do not help you get to your goals.
Right.
So try to ignore them or find a way to say no. So that's your prioritizing.
we have Dr. Shamima Sichter. What kinds of practices, routines, habits, things do you do that is you think contribute to your success in academic medicine?
I think it's a constant evolution. So I'm always trying to pick up new habits as well. But I found that I'm a list maker. And so that has been sort of one of my go-to habits from a very early stage. And it really has been critical, I think, in helping me balance my work demands and my home demands and my personal needs and sort of bringing it all together.
Can you tell people what happens if you always see things on your list that you never get to? So can you speak to this tendency that some of us have of perhaps putting blinders on and seeing that revise and resubmit that paper that's always at number 20 and you never seem to get it done? How do you, Shamima, prioritize and exercise discipline in doing the things that are on our list that we really don't want to do?
So, yes, there are often those nagging items that you never seem to clear sometimes. And I think at some point you have to realize one of two things needs to happen. Either the next time you're sitting down to get work done, that item needs to be moved to the top of the list. And if you follow different sort of methodologies for organization and efficiency, there's this concept of eat the frog. So the thing that you're dreading the most, just get it done. And so either you make the commitment and you say, you know what, item number 20 needs to be item number 1, and I just need to spend the 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever it takes to sort of get it off the ground and hopefully get it done. Or, which I think is very difficult for many of us, especially those who are go-getters and want to achieve as much as we can, we have to say to ourselves or ask the question, is this really something that I want to do? Because the fact that I've been postponing it so much seems to indicate that it's not really a true passion. And sometimes you just have to say goodbye and you just put a line through that item and you move on. So obviously, if this is a responsibility that you have owed to someone else, you can't just walk away from that. But there are sometimes, I think, you have to listen to what your actions are telling you. And if, you can't do everything and you can't do it always and you can't do it all at once. And sometimes we just have to figure for ourselves that, our priorities change and some things on the list have to let go. And I think it kind of goes back to how precious time is. I mean, time really ultimately is our most precious commodity. We hope that we use it well, that we support our health, our physical health, our mental health, the relationships that we have with those with whom we're close. But ultimately, if you are saying yes to different projects, it means that eventually you're going to be saying no to something else. I think often we're quick to cancel out the things that are sort of self-serving, like making time for exercise or, making time to get together with a friend for a cup of coffee. And so ultimately, I think recognizing that there is a power in no, in saying no. I think for many, especially I think women in academic positions or women in professional positions, I think sometimes we feel obliged to offer an explanation. No, ... because no, but next time. And I think we should be comfortable, of course, be polite as always whenever an opportunity comes. But sometimes no is a complete sentence. This is just not something that I can do. So the answer is no. And we move on. I think there's a power. And I also think that it comes at a different stage. When you're first beginning, you feel like, oh my gosh, how rude it would be to say no. I need to take every single opportunity that I can get. But I think in the end, if you think about what your values are, what your mission is, and you sort of identify a mission statement, something that really drives you, and with each opportunity you ask yourself, does it really feed into what I think my mission is? And if the answer is no, then, it probably is not going to be the best use of your time, which is just so precious.
No, I just wrote that down. No is a complete sentence. No is a complete sentence. Really? Yes. Oh my gosh. That's amazing. Thanks for tuning in to the Faculty Factory podcast. We are a faculty development community sharing tools to build academic leaders in healthcare. Maybe you want to be interviewed on the podcast? Please visit facultyfactory.org/contact and send me a message there. The Faculty Factory podcast and website is sponsored by the Office of Faculty Affairs at the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston, Texas.